Today I am going to listen a story about a good man is hard to find. Once upon a time in a quaint southern town lived a woman named Mrs. O'Connor. She was a stern, devout woman, fiercely devoted to her faith, and held herself to high moral standards. Mrs. O'Connor had an only child, a young boy named John, who, despite his mother's best efforts, was a free spirit. Mrs. O'Connor had often read stories to John, hoping to impart her values and beliefs to him. Her favorite tale was "A Good Man is Hard to Find." She believed that this story perfectly captured the essence of her own beliefs, and she hoped that John would one day understand its moral lesson. One sunny afternoon, Mrs. O'Connor decided to take John on a trip to the nearby woods to spend some quality time with him. She packed a picnic basket with sandwiches, apples, and lemonade, and they set off on their adventure. As they ventured into the forest, John's curiosity got the better of him, and he began to explore deeper into the woods. Mrs. O'Connor called out to him, urging him to stay close, but John's youthful enthusiasm made him deaf to her pleas. He soon disappeared behind the dense foliage. Mrs. O'Connor was distraught, feeling helpless and lost in the forest. She began to pray fervently, hoping that God would watch over her son and keep him safe. Meanwhile, John had wandered quite far into the woods, his fascination with the natural world keeping him completely absorbed. He was utterly unaware of the distress his mother was experiencing. He marveled at the intricate patterns of leaves, the chirping of birds, and the rustling of small animals in the underbrush. As the day wore on, Mrs. O'Connor grew increasingly worried. The story of "A Good Man is Hard to Find" echoed in her mind, and she realized the lesson it held. She knew that her own rigid moral beliefs had kept her from enjoying life's simple pleasures, and it had led to the loss of her beloved son. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "A good man, a good boy, is hard to find. But in my search for one, I lost the most precious gift life has given me." At that moment, a kind-hearted stranger named Samuel came across Mrs. O'Connor. He had been hiking in the woods and noticed her distress. Samuel approached her, and with a warm smile, he inquired about her troubles. Mrs. O'Connor, her heart heavy with worry, shared the story of her adventurous son and the valuable lesson she had learned from "A Good Man is Hard to Find." Samuel listened attentively, understanding the depth of her pain. He offered to help her find John, saying, "Let's search for your son together, and when we find him, we can all learn a valuable lesson." The two of them set off through the forest, calling John's name and following the sounds of his laughter. They searched tirelessly until, at last, they stumbled upon a scene that warmed their hearts. John was sitting under a tree, sharing his picnic with a stray dog he had found. The dog was a little scruffy but wagged its tail with joy. Tears streamed down Mrs. O'Connor's face as she rushed to her son, embracing him tightly. She realized that John had been the good man she was searching for all along, embodying the kindness and compassion that she had been too blind to see. Samuel, who had been observing the heartwarming scene, smiled and said, "A good boy is not so hard to find when we open our hearts to the beauty and kindness of the world." Mrs. O'Connor nodded in agreement, grateful to the stranger who had not only helped her find her son but had also helped her find a new perspective on life. She learned that rigid beliefs can sometimes blind us to the simple joys and goodness that exist in the world. As they left the woods, Mrs. O'Connor, John, Samuel, and the scruffy dog all walked together, a newfound sense of unity and love enveloping them. Mrs. O'Connor knew that she had finally found her good man in the form of her loving son, who had taught her the most important lesson of all, that love and compassion are the qualities that truly matter. This heartwarming tale of a mother's journey to find her son and the valuable lesson she learned along the way is a reminder that sometimes goodness is right in front of us, if only we are open to see it. A good man is hard to find, indeed, but sometimes the goodness we seek is closer than we think. Hope you like the story. Hit the like button and share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe the channel and turn on the notification. Thank you.